Well, next to tomatoes, peppers are the #2 crop grown in the home garden, and for good reason. They are delicious, they come in many varieties, easy to grow, and can be prepared and stored in many different ways. Peppers are also becoming a favorite cash crop for commercial growers here in Oklahoma. Recently, we had a chance to visit with Dr. Jim Motes, Extension Vegetable Specialist, about pepper varieties in Oklahoma.
Yeah, in Oklahoma we grow several types of fresh market peppers, and of course the most common one is the bell pepper. But we're seeing more and more of the hot peppers like jalapeno and chilies being grown because it's becoming a more popular food item in the state. And peppers can have most any color from red to green to yellow to brown, chocolate colored. And they can have many shapes from long chilies here to perfectly round cherry peppers, the big old blocky bell peppers, jalapenos, and then we can have the real small, highly pungent chilies. So they come in basically those four colors. And color has nothing to do with the pungency of the pepper. A green one can be just as hot or hotter than a red, and so color makes no difference as far as pungency goes. Most peppers, when they're immature, are green in color, and then red starts to develop, and the combination of green and red makes the brown pepper. Then as the green leaves and the red takes over, we end up with a red-colored pepper pod. In cases where the green doesn't leave, we can have a ripe pepper pod that's just totally brown. Yellow is just another pigment that develops when the green leaves, so we end up with a ripe color that is yellow. And it's just a different pigment than the ripe color that's red. Extremely high color red peppers have a use as a food colorant. And the color can be extracted from these peppers using solvents. Then it's sold in the food processing industry as a red food color. Now, these types of peppers are also ground when they're dry, and that's what's sold as ground paprika. And generally, that type of material does not have any heat in it. It's a sweet paprika with high red color that's used in cooking as a garnish on food.
A trait that is most associated with peppers is the heat factor, or how hot a pepper is to the taste. Dr. Motes gives some insight into what makes some peppers hot.
There's a chemical called capsaicin that is produced inside the pepper, and this material is produced in the papery tissue that the seeds are attached to, called crosswall tissue. And this chemical is sensed by our tongue or mouth or skin as being hot. And the more that there is, why the hotter we sense that pepper. Contrary to popular belief, the seeds don't have heat in them and the pod wall doesn't. But what happens in handling the peppers, the seed and the pod wall get contaminated because the material's in little blister-like structures, and when you handle peppers, they squirt and contaminate the seed and the pod wall. So people, when they eat them, find heat in the pod wall and seed, but that's really contamination. It didn't develop there. In the commercial trade, there's a term called Scoville. And the Scoville rating, the higher the rating, the hotter the pepper. Pure capsaicin has a Scoville rating of 15 million. A very hot pepper, such as this little chili over here, has a rating of about 500,000 Scoville. So it has about 3% capsaicin in it. A chili like this might have a rating of 1 to 2,000 Scoville, similar to a jalapeno, which might be as much as 3, 4, maybe 5,000 Scoville. Generally, you'll find that it takes a smaller pepper pod to have a very high Scoville rating or be highly pungent. One that's very large, like these, usually has a lower rating because the pod wall dilutes the pungency. Heat is totally separate from shape and color and everything, and breeders have put out bell peppers that have heat in them. And that pepper is no different than other hot peppers. If the crosswall thin tissue that the seeds are attached to inside contains the heat.
Dr. Motes has helped many commercial growers get started in pepper production. Coyle, Oklahoma vegetable farmer Wayne Whitmore tells how he markets his crop.
Here we're growing green chilies, basically for a fresh market. We sell these at the farmer's market in Stillwater, as well as to a Mexican restaurant in Stillwater, Bobo's. And the way we got started with this is Bobo's asked us if we could grow green chilies, and we didn't know anything about it, so we done our homework and got a hold of some plants and tried it, and sure enough we could. And what they do is they take and roast these peppers and peel them and then use them in their salsas and whatnot. And they really like the fresh quality over frozen that they would have to otherwise use. So from that we've got to where we produce several hundred pounds a year for them. And of course a few people that come from New Mexico and places know what they are, and they'll come get them and roast them themselves and use them for home use. We also sell red ones. Oriental people come out and buy the red ones, and they dry them and make their own chili powder out of them. We usually only grow about an acre of them. We make several hundred pounds a year though off of that. At the end of the year we do open it up for pick your own on the red ones. While we're picking our green ones through the season, we don't want anybody else in there picking them, because there's just because they're green doesn't mean they're ripe. They have to be ripe before we pick them, and it's kind of hard to tell. Whenever the pepper becomes firm and it changes color somewhat, you can tell after you've picked a few. It's real easy to tell whether they're ripe or not. It just gets shiny. The pepper gets shiny, and it's also real firm to touch. A immature pepper is soft.
In comparison, pepper grower Nancy Manus is finding her niche in the market by raising peppers for dried usage.
Well, we're growing a Bahamian chili pepper. We planted about 3 acres. There's about 48 rows out here that are about 650 feet long. We planted them about the 1st of May, and we just kept water on them and irrigation fertilizer on them. We put an initial herbicide down that's labeled for putting transplants into, and that's it. The rest of the time it's been just hoeing when we had time. And then we've just waited for it to freeze so that the leaves will drop off of them, and then we're going to cut them at the ground level and beat the peppers off of them, and we'll pick out the green ones and the orange ones, and then we'll be selling the red ones dried to restaurant market. They'll just use the reds. They'll use it for grinding and mixing in spices, and then some of the dishes use the whole pepper. It's an easy crop to grow. It had very little maintenance, and the only problem that we had was a little bit of bacterial spot, but it's just a low maintenance type crop.
Some of the research on peppers here at OSU centers primarily around improving varieties for purposes such as heat intensity and color, size, and earliness, just to mention a few. And in addition to growers selling peppers for food usage, it's also interesting to know that peppers are being used for food colorings, medicinal purposes, repellents, and self-defense products such as mace. Well, that's all the time we've got on today's show. I'd like to invite you to join us again next week here on Oklahoma Gardening.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.